Here we go. All right, welcome back to VIBE Edu. I'm with Kim Gamaras, TJ Very, Mitch Weathers, myself as Joshua Stamper. As you heard last time, we were debating on what on earth should we do over the summer, and the four of us put our heads together and decided we're still going to have weekly episodes, but they're just going to be condensed and shorter. So this week, we're going to be starting a brand new series on staff wellness. And so how we're going to break that down real quick is this episode, we're going to be talking about end of year burnout and things to do to make sure that we are in the right mind and that we're not feeling that stress. And then, of course, next time we're going to be doing leaning into team culture. Third one's going to be hiring practices. And the fourth one's going to be teacher retention and how to keep our good folks. So where do we want to start with this one as we talk about the end of the year and how so many people right now are feeling either overwhelmed as the school year is ending or they are just done as the school year is completed?
I think Mr. Aloha himself needs to throw out the first question. Mr. Aloha, take it away.
Yeah, aloha. I just think I was just curious. Not that I have a definitive answer. I don't know if anybody does, but is it possible to end the school year not burn out? You know, what would that, if that was like the intention or one of the goals for an individual teacher or a school leader for their staff, like what decisions would you start making now, June, July, for the following year? And again, I'm not claiming to have an answer. I have some ideas. And I think there's a difference between like fatigue and burnout, right? There's being tired and being like, I'm not sure I can do this again, are two different things. But do we have to end in a way that we're just ground down, you know, which is so typical in our industry?
Mm-hmm.
Aloha.
Aloha. I mean, before just everyone knows, Mitch is in Waikiki and I'm uber jealous over here. I mean, I can't even handle it. Just knowing that you're there. Oh,
for work, everybody. It's for work. I'm not vacationing.
For work. I just over the weekend met with my community teachers and I really wanted to get into their brains on their experience, their transformation. And instead of like just doing a normal Google form, I was like, let's have some fun. Let's use Mentimeter. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Mentimeter. I just absolutely love it. And I was like, I know they're going to eat this up. And also we can see kind of like, I don't know, let's have some fun in this too. So I asked them just like, I think we had about 10, maybe 12 questions. And it was all around mindset. It was all around identity. It was around burnout. It was around behavior. And it was really cool. I kind of set the results to be like, you know, how you could do like a pie graph or you can do like whatever, you know, I was like, I want like the little dots to like go. So when they would answer questions, you could see like where the dots would go. And one of my teachers was like, it's so satisfying. I was like, I know, that's why we're doing this for us, not just for kids, but for us. But to look at their responses and where they were, it wasn't necessarily like they were feeling good because they had all these strategies. It wasn't that they were feeling lighter because they knew what to do with behavior. It was, I feel happier. I feel good right now heading into the summer because I have my people. And the word belonging and the word connection and the word community came up over and over and over again. And truthfully, I feel like the connection, the sense of belonging. I mean, you can say culture, like we have our own bison culture. We're in this together. And I feel like if you have that, there is a chance that perhaps you can make it all the way to the end of the school year and into the summer without feeling burnt out.
Save the good stuff, Kim, because that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about the team culture. Because I do think that's an answer, is an all-in team culture that's cultivated throughout the school year. A couple things I'll add is that you don't prevent burnout at the end. So anything that we give to people is going to be a strategy for next school year to prevent being burnout at the end. I don't think if you're already feeling burnout and it's the end for you, it's a wrap. So it's time to recharge, sharpen the saw, and get ready for the next school year. The people I have come across in my career who don't get burnout and don't get flustered, and Mitch is going to love this answer, are super organized. Just organized. Their day is organized. Their desk is organized. Their classroom or office is organized. Their week is organized. And what that does is it compartmentalizes their work for the day and themselves in the evening. And it compartmentalizes vacation and breaks to actually be vacation and breaks. And I think one strategy is, if you're breathing bus fumes every day because the kids got on the bus and you left right away, it's really hard to stay organized. But if you take that extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes to make sure that things are set up to be ready for the next day and to not take that work home, then home time is for rest and relaxation to recharge for the next day. But if you're constantly taking this break after the buses leave and then going back to it at 6 o'clock, and then spring break comes and you have to take this pile of things home with you because you didn't get it done from before, it's probably 20 to 30, maybe an hour of extra time compressed during the workday that gives you a regular evening and regular breaks. And I think that's how you stay sane throughout the school year. I wasn't great at that, but the times where I can remember a time when I was a teacher where I refused to take work home, and I finished all my work before I left the school. And that meant that I was a little bit later at the school, but it meant that I really was at home and present when I left the place. And that was probably the best I've ever felt, or at least one of the times that I felt good, and was all due to organization. And that's kind of the strategy that I would offer folks.
I love
think,
that.
yeah.
Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking the same thing with TJ. Is like, I was trying to, as an administrator, it's a little bit different of a mindset because our job doesn't get done when the students are done, right? It's continuous over the summer. So that feeling of like, oh, the year's complete is a little bit different. But I was trying to reminisce about, like, as a teacher, and I think as a young teacher, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it was kind of trial and error. And some of the things that, Kim, you were talking about with your community, the student behavior ramped up at the end of the school year. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. Right. And so I had to try some different strategies. So if these things work, these things didn't work. Things I was trying to implement in the classroom, some of the assignments, some of the projects, kids aren't digging that. So scrap it, right, for the next year. And so I think regardless of where you are with your timeline, I do think there needs to be some reflection for that organization, what TJ was talking about, but that's a proactive strategy. That's not something that, like, to TJ's point, once the school year's done, I'm not going to reflect. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I always do and roll that into the next year. Because I think that's where, we can see, okay, I didn't have some successes, but I'm just going to continue those practices moving forward regardless. And then every year you just run into the same problems. And I think when we're repetitive in that and we don't make changes, we don't start to, try new things, I think that's when we start to get in that rut where it's like, well, they should be working. They should happen this way. And when it doesn't over and over and over every year, I think that's when some people get really, really frustrated. And that's when that burnout sits in. And that's when we start questioning, okay, is this the campus for me? Is this the district? Start making excuses, or I'm just done with this profession altogether. So I think that is a mindset, and just thinking through being proactive versus reactive.
Go ahead.
I think that I was just thinking, and you spoke to it, Josh, but like there's no question that reflection is part of this whole equation. But if you're brand new, you're like, hey, I'm reflecting and that didn't seem like it worked. Now what? And I think that's where being part of a community of some sort, which can be on campus, but if you're lucky enough to find a community like Kim's community, then you have seasoned successful teachers that can be like, oh, let me help you out. Just little pointers. All right.
Yeah.
But without reflection, you're right. Like you're gonna repeat and keep grinding. So
I mean, even today, a mentor teacher and myself, we met with a teacher in our community because she was like, I need a massive reset. Like my nervous system is shot. And she had said that over the Zoom over the weekend. And for me, who leads all of these teachers, I was like, we need to meet on Zoom. We need to meet on Zoom and we need to do some deep reflection because I will not let you spend your entire summer just getting to baseline, you know? And so we met and I just wrote down two things that we said. We said, you need to chunk out your day so that you have a specific amount of time where you are going to check in with your community, right? So it's not like this is a teacher who's like, notifications off because that's what I need. Fine, great. But then what time during the day are you going to go back in and you're going to intentionally check in? And also part 2 was, and reach out. So find a teacher that, we in our cohorts, we have teachers at every single grade level. We have special ed teachers. We got middle school teachers, elementary school teachers. And I was like, here, this one, and this one, these are your people. So you can send them Voxer messages. You can send them pictures. You can post things in there, but you also got to be vulnerable. You've also got to do that. I think when I think back to being in the classroom, for me, a very organized type A teacher that I was all the time. I mean, I had a million tabs open and I needed to close them so that I could go home. And so I wasn't the teacher to be just like, leave the classroom a mess or, have a big piles like everywhere. That was not me at all. But I had my students support me. I said, you guys, I've got some problems here. I need some solutions. This is what the classroom looks like to be clean. Let's go. Here's the chunk of time that we have to do this. And guess what? That didn't become a me thing at the end of the school day after the students left. As a teacher who teaches elementary school, the classroom and just the organization of like where things go at the end of the day, if you can put that on your kids and take it off of you, then you can tighten up things. You can have the copies ready. You can have the grading done so that you can go and be present at home and close those tabs along the way. So I would say, don't put it on you to feel like you need to do all the things. Are there certain things that your students can help support you into so that you can go home and refuel?
Yeah, it's true for secondary as well. Even if it's 5 periods a day, or it might look different throughout the day, like what needs to happen, but there's definitely got to be some routine
right
around organization and cleanup, and so you're offloading it.
Yeah.
And then speaking of like offloading, now that the school year is wrapping up or people have already wrapped up, I think the reflection too should be during the school year, what are my personal routines for Sharpen the Saw, 7 habits of highly effective people? Because I know a lot of teachers who they're pouring into their students, they're pouring into their lesson plans all day. Yep. And then they go home and they manage their kids and their life and dinner and maybe go back to the lesson planning in the evening. That kind, like, I don't mean this, like that kind of is a recipe for a disaster if you don't have a Sharpen the Saw strategy. And I know I don't mean that people aren't organizing their day or their life. I just think it's easy to fall into that habit of I work, and then I set my family up, and then I set myself up for work. We've all been there. But if you don't have like the meditation time in the morning for 10 minutes, and even like 15 minutes of exercise or 30 minutes of exercise, or I take a long walk in the evening, or even your favorite TV show, like spend time in nature. Like I think just a segment of your day that's Sharpen the Saw, even if it's short, can mean a world of difference between being burnout and not being burnout, and giving your whole life, and you can't pour from an empty cup. It's not selfish to do that. It's actually the other way around.
Yeah, there's a great graphic, TJ, where it's got the burnout equation and it's 4 squares, and it says work, and then it skips over break and it goes back to work. And that's exactly, I think, especially just teacher mentality. I think it's a teacher equation that happens quite often. And you can fill in the work as to, the work at school or work with family and work with, whatever other organizations that you're a part of. And then you skip over yourself and you just go and start serving all these other entities. So just be careful of that burnout equation for those who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we got to debunk the myth of that, like the burnout is a badge of honor. That's definitely a thing in education, and it's not a badge of honor to like not eat lunch. It's not a badge of honor to just be strung out. There's this weird thing in our industry around that, in leadership and the classroom teachers. So I think we got to just debunk that. That's not a thing.
Agreed.
And if you don't know if you are a person that uses that as a badge, when people are asking, how are you? How do you answer that question?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it is, oh, I'm so busy right now, or, and you start to throw out a lot of different things. And that is, unfortunately, an unconscious way of saying, this is how hard I'm working. This is how I'm, sacrificing myself. And so just, if you want to reflect, how do you answer that question when people ask, how are you doing? Just something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is a short episode, so we're going to close this down. We're close to that 15-minute mark. So we're going to continue with another episode here. The next one's going to be on what TJ was talking about, leaning into team culture. And so we did touch on community a little bit, but I want to just preface that Kim's community is outside of your campus, outside of your district. So we're going to probably talk more about the team culture within your own staff versus what we're talking about today. But with that, we're going to say goodbye and welcome you to the first one down of our summer series.